Well, hi again. Are we on the brink of World War III? Well, that's what the newspapers are saying. Well, they're saying that I'm saying that. So I may disagree a little. Let's see. Let's have a chat about World War III. We've got four big conflicts happening in the world at the moment, happening more or less simultaneously. Where will they take us? And what can I see and what can you see about the future and what it holds for us? So, are we on the brink of World War III? Welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, welcome to the show again. If you're here for the first time, do please subscribe, of course. And if you're here many, many times, do always please give us a thumbs up if you can, because it helps the algorithm. So if you've not been here before, I'm Craig Hamilton Parker. I'm a psychic medium. And I've been in the press a lot the last few days. They're calling me the new Nostradamus. I don't know if that's a good accolade or not. It depends what you feel about Nostradamus. But anyway, I've been in the newspapers, and some of the headlines that have been coming out are kind of a little bit different to the way I would have really worded things. But I did an interview recently. I did one with the Daily Mail that you might have seen the other day. And I've also done one with the Star newspaper. And the Star asked me if I could forecast the next 100 days of Donald Trump. And part of what I talked about was some of the world conflicts that I feel are going to be, we're going to have to address quite soon, maybe in the next 100 days. I'm not necessarily saying they'll all be in the next 100 days. I think if they all happened on full on in the same period, yes, we would be in a state of World War III. But that's not quite as I see it. Let me show you the first headline that they put up for us. Now, if I get this right, let's find the right one. Where has it gone? This is okay. So the Star come up, and they, after my talk with them, the headline they come up with, which I thought was quite amusing, really, because, you know, you've got to give them their dues. They've got to look for headlines, these guys. And actually, the Star's one of the best headline writing newspapers out there, I think. But it said 4 horrific feuds that could spark World War III in the next 100 days, says new Nostradamus. Exclusive. Is the end of the world as we know it, if the predictions of the new Nostradamus come true, that is, with situations all around the world in danger of spilling over. Well, there you go. But if you're having a look around, of course, these newspapers, they tend to kind of franchise things to each other, and they work with each other. So you find, our next thing I see is that other newspapers are saying very similar. The Minute Mirror, actually, I don't really know this one, but 4 world flashpoints may spark World War III in the next 100 days, warns Sear. Okay. And there was another one out there, which was Express. And get that turned off so we can get interruptions. Express US, Daily Express in the US said psychic new Nostradamus predicts 4 wars that could spark World War III in the next 100 days. Okay, well, first and foremost, the next 100 days is not quite what I was talking. I was talking about Trump's next 100 days, and I did mention these issues, but of course they kind of, I think, pulled it a little bit out of context. So I don't blame them. They're there to make news. So let's just look at some of the little bits in it, because I'm going to talk about these things in a bit more detail and tell you what my take is on it, particularly with what's happening in India at the moment, because that was one of the things that came up in the interview, and I think it's particularly brought the headlines up. One says armed confrontations flare up anew this April in the wake of terror strikes against the tourist coach, according to reports. In a chilling forecast, prognosticator New Nos, anticipated greater regional instability. I foresee Indian troop movements into Nepal, which is happened today, right? Hasn't it? So I got it right. He revealed, also predicting, I see that Trump will use this moment to forge new military and economic ties with India, pulling India further away from Russia. It's exactly what I said. That's completely correct. I'm saying it's not true, but I didn't quite say this is going to be World War III. And also, if you look at the text closely with some of the things, and you might notice I've highlighted a couple of words this time. A psychic has revealed that 4 critical flashpoints could ignite within the next 100 days. Now, I didn't strictly mean it that way, but fair enough. We were talking about Trump's next 100 days, potentially triggering World War III. Potentially. Craig Hamilton Parker, often referred to as the new Nostradamus, was discussing Donald Trump's first 100 days in the office when he hinted, right, at several global high-pressure zones that shared his cosmic insight about them. His predictions include some alarming incidents with enough at stake to potentially cause a world conflict. One area of concern is Taiwan, which China views as part of its territory and regularly conducts military drills nearby, keeping both Taiwan and the world on edge. Okay, but I think I'm pretty much there with what I wanted to show you there. Looked at all that. Have we done that one? Yeah, done that one. Yeah, so lots of words like potential and could spark, if you notice in the headlines. Didn't say in that one, but the thing is, one paper feeds off another, and you end up in quite an interesting situation. So let's go through what I did say, and let's clarify some of it, because sometimes it's a little bit what you leave out, as well as what you put in, that makes what you say different. So one of the things, let's have a look. I think if I can do this. Screen share, I think. That's a screen share, I think, is it? Yes. Okay, now I think in order to do that, I just have to quickly nip onto. There we are. Okay, so I'm going to look at this one that's on the screen at the moment. This is the actual Star interview, and I read the first part to you. So let's talk about these, and let me suggest some of the things I feel is going to happen here. 4 key flashpoints could kick off in the next 100 days, a psychic has revealed, potentially with shockwaves that cause World War III. Again, the potential. I didn't mention World War III. That's their words. Anyway, I suppose fair enough. If you look at it like this, it could be like a World War III. But World War III, you think of nuclear war, don't you? And everybody throwing nuclear bombs at each other, a bit like the thumbnail I put up, you know. Is that really the case? You know, that we can have multiple conflicts in the world and we still don't get into what we would call the Third World War. References to new Nostradamus, he named number of high pressure points, blah, blah, blah. Is connection ping through some pretty scary incidents. All of them could have plenty of at stake because of global conflict catastrophe. Where are we? Another picture of me there. One area of interest is Taiwan, leered over by China, which sees it as part of its territory. China regularly conducts military drills in its proximity, keeping Taiwan and the world generally on edge. Okay, the new Nos, the new Nos, I like that, thinks the time is coming when the tension finally bursts. I foresee China making a move on Taiwan, he explained, before adding ominously, I predict that Trump will come to Taiwan's rescue, but at huge cost. Now, but at huge cost. Your mind immediately thinks huge human cost, great tragedy of people being shot, bloodbaths, seas running in blood, don't you? But at huge cost. I went on to say, this is where you leave bits out, that Trump would charge Taiwan for protecting it. And part of that deal would be to have much more of Taiwan's investment into America for production of microchips and the rest in the USA rather than Taiwan. The cost of America is not here suggested by human blood, but is a cost to the country. They will tell Taiwan that you've got to pay for this. In fact, this is going to be the theme that's coming up. He did it in Ukraine. And you remember at the beginning of the year, when I first started talking about all these predictions, at the beginning of the year, I did talk about how the word on everybody's lips is going to be rare metals and rare earth metals and so forth. So this is where it's going. We need rare earth metals, says Trump, and so says the industries that need electric vehicles and need spaceships and need all the new technology and the iPhones and the rest of it. We can't do that without rare earth metals. We haven't got enough. Where are we going to get them from? Okay, let's get them from Ukraine. Let's get them from let's get the facilities to make it from Taiwan. Then we can be truly independent. Because being an independent country is not like it was in the Industrial Revolution, is it now? We can have steel making, we can have coal manufacturing, we can have coal and all the rest of it. But what about the real stuff that makes the modern age tick? We need more of that. So that's the huge cost, okay? And it wasn't only East Asia where you saw a potential spark coming from. The new NOS, Snozzle, I think, turned his attention to Southeast Asia. Now, this is also quite important because I predicted this before it's happened today. I predict emerging conflicts between India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, he said. Tensions between India and Pakistan have been simmering over the ownership of Kashmir region since 1947, periodically flaring up into violence. So I was kind of right about that. So it kind of happened almost very quickly, although it has been brewing, to be honest. It has been brewing in the background there. So what's going to happen with that? Well, one of the things I feel is like Kashmir is kind of divided up into two territories, part being controlled by Pakistan, part being controlled by India, and the two don't get on. But I see India pushing its actual troops. It does have a lot of control there, but pushing his actual troops into Kashmir. Quite a big troop movement, a bit of saber rattling going on here. And excuse me. And I don't believe that all those planes were shot down that they've said, Indian planes. Somehow I think they might have been drones or something rather than planes, because everybody's going to big it up about what they've done. But first of all, the question we're asking at the moment at the time of doing this, so I'm doing this on the 7th of May, and the time at the moment is, I'm making this at 3 o'clock. So you might see it slightly later and think events might already overtake this. But will Pakistan retaliate? Yes, they will retaliate, I feel. And this is almost a bit like a situation we had in Gaza, because although we haven't got hostages, so we haven't got a sort of a goal to achieve things here, we have got a very similar situation because it was triggered by that terrible terrorist attack on people coming in from India into Nepal, in which that coach was completely shot up. Now, this is a very similar situation. It makes you wonder whether the stars are at work here in the background, doesn't it? Because so many similar things seem to happen around the world at the same time. But they will retaliate, and I think it's the wrong thing to do, but they will. And I also feel that Turkey and also Iran, although more clandestinely with Iran, but I think news will come that Iran's been partly behind some of this as well, will be not only fully in support of Pakistan, but will actually supply troops and help. I also feel China's going to get itself involved in this too, possibly trying to come in as a bit of a peacemaker. They don't get on with India at the moment. There's real major conflicts between China and India at the moment. You know, there's threats to the tea making area, I've forgotten the name of it now, Assam and places like that, and also on all of its borders, and question marks over Tibet and the rest of it. So India and China are not the best of friends anymore. India's much more friends with Russia, or it has been, who's also in the bed with China. So it's going to be a very complicated situation. And of course, we've got America and Britain building new bridges with India. So who's going to be the peacemaker here? If Trump gets involved, it's going to get a bit complicated, but I feel Trump will get involved. Really, the one that's friends for both sides is Britain. Britain's friends with Pakistan and it's friends with India. So Britain could be potentially the great peacemaker. Would Keir Starmer step up to the mark on this? I can't really see it. He's more interested in personal kudos at the moment than actually really making peace. Trump, I think, will come in, and I think again there'll be a cost to be paid on both sides. If we're gonna do something with this, if we're gonna step in, we want trade deals. We want trade deals both sides. He's always on the lookout for what's the money to be made in this. War's a real good way of making money. So I feel he will get him. So it's going to be a rising attention, not an ending of it. I feel this conflict, like it said, it's been there since 1947. We've had blow-ups before between Pakistan and India, and the gunfire has been exchanged multiple times. Was it 2009? I think, I'm not sure. But nonetheless, I do feel it escalating. So I'm seeing Indian troops going into Nepal. I'm seeing retaliations. I'm seeing India over the years will start to expand its borders. Not now, not in the next 100 days, I add, but eventually Kashmir will be completely owned by India. This might be the first step of that. They might push the border a little bit here if conflict does increase. I see India in due course owning part of, or maybe all of, Afghanistan. And I see it also doing a deal of some sort with a non-military takeover of Bangladesh. That's long term, not within the next 100 days. But I've often felt with India that there's this feeling that India's going to become a very great nation. It's going to take over from China as the world manufacturing company. It's got filthy industries just like China has, but it's also got a democracy. And I feel that's going to make a major change to the way it functions with a democracy, or a form of democracy, I suppose. But with a democracy, I think you stand a better chance of sustaining capitalism. China, ultimately, I feel breaking up, and breaking up into multiple countries. And this Taiwan crisis, which I feel will come up, perhaps not in the next 100 days, but at some point in Trump's presidency, put it that way. When that does come up, I feel it's going to put a lot of pressure for internal cave-ins within China. Ultimately, I see China breaking up into multiple small countries, which will work better because there'll be more, because Chinese are not just Chinese. There's lots of different types of Chinese, lots of different groups within China. And in the past, China was multiple cantons. So I've seen it going back more to that with multiple democracies and something a bit like a union like the EU have got, with countries working together. So Kashmir, trouble ahead, I'm afraid. Nuclear war? No. We have two nuclear countries next to each other who could fire a preemptive strike on each one another, and nobody would know what had happened. You could get a nuclear bomb from onto Delhi within seconds because they're so close. They're neighbours. It's almost like where India was once one continent. It's almost like a nuclear civil war, isn't it, if that was to happen? But I think both sides have got more sense than that. But they're going to push the point hard. India is going to become much more expansive in its attitude over the years ahead. And over this period, I think we'll see the seeds of that happening. Okay, so that's some of my thoughts on that. So the star went on. This manifests most recently in April when armed skirmishes broke out following a terror attack on the tourist bus in the region. So like I say, it's a bit like, isn't it? It's a bit like what happened in Gaza. Now, the other one, obviously there's Ukraine. I'm not going to cover Ukraine at the moment. I don't think I said much about Ukraine in the article we did for them. But I did feel that what's going to happen with Ukraine is we're going to get a peace something. Here we are. He turned his attention to Eastern Europe, where he warned that Ukraine presidency Zelensky could be incensed by the heavy touted possibility of Trump negotiating a deal with Russia, what would see Ukraine giving up its claim to Crimea. I predict that a deal will be made when Crimea is officially ceded to Russia. I've said that I feel that Ukraine will lose Russia, and there will be a ceasefire, but it will not hold. The new Nos then joined many other commentators by raising the alarm over the possibility of violence continuing despite the cessation. I foresee a new flare-up of violence in Ukraine around August, I've said. So I agree with all that. Most of all this is absolutely 100% of what I've said. It's just the way they put the headline, that World War III bit, is not quite what I was saying. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, new Nostradamus predicts a situation certain to cause further outrage among some nations in the region. I predict that a deal will be struck between the US and Israel, allowing Gaza to be absorbed into Israel. And I feel that's happening. Now, in the next few days, I predict that Trump's going to come up with something, that he's done a deal with Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, I feel, have been doing something behind the scenes, talking to Hamas. Could this be the release of the hostages? Lost my camera for a minute. Could this be the release of the hostages? Or could it be a deal that's also tied up with the gradual takeover of Gaza by both Israel in conjunction with an Arab country such as Saudi Arabia? It's like the place is going to be taken over in a deal that's done between two people you wouldn't think could do a deal together. Saudi Arabia and Israel, something like that's going to happen, where they come together and say, right, we're going to do a deal with this. We're going to rebuild it, but it's not going to be in quite the same way. You can't have your own government anymore. It's not working. And I think there's a release of hostages somewhere in this as well. And this is going to be, we're going to get some shock thing in the next few days about that. So that's where I'm going with most of this. So you've let's remove that from the screen somehow. Yep, there we go. So that's where I'm going with that mainly. I feel that people have often asked me, will there be a World War III? And I've said I don't feel there will be. And this is something I've felt for years and years and years since I've been doing my mediumship, right back in around 1984, 83, 84 sort of time, when I was sitting developing my mediumship. We had many trance sessions with my mentor at the time, Peter Close, who he would go into trance and I'd cross-examine his guide. And this was genuine, proper trance mediumship with proper evidence to prove it was it, like not just a fantasy from the person's mind, like so much trance is. And I asked many questions about what would happen in the future of the world. And I said, would there be a World War III? And he said, no. But he said, watch out, because there's going to be a big war between Iran and Iraq. And that all happened. And it was major. We're forgetting it now, because that was the war that created the first tensions and the vacuums that created the need for America to move in, and Kuwait and all the rest of it. So he saw that and he said, there won't be a big world nuclear war, but the countries you've got to watch out for are small countries getting nuclear weapons. And he named Iran and he named North Korea, which was quite amazing at the time. He said, these will be the areas of conflict, but there won't be a big nuclear wipeout. Now, we'll obviously have nuclear worries all the time about, could anybody actually start using nuclear weapons again? They'd be mad to do it. I mean, Putin's threatened it. Would Pakistan threaten it in retaliation? They'd lose a battle if they had to fight against India, but both sides would see terrible conflicts, wouldn't they? Would Iran really use it? And would North Korea be able to use it with the new domes and things coming in with Japan and places like that? I don't think we will, but we'll always have the fear of it. We'll always have the threat of it. It's been there since all through my life. I remember when I was a child, the Cuban crisis, I can remember children at school fainting for fear because of what they've been seeing and being told about television, actually fainting in class. I can remember it. It was scary, the Cuban crisis, but it's been with us all for a long period. And yet we got this far. We haven't done bad, really. And it's in a way, nuclear weapons have kind of held the peace when it comes to world conflict. We can't go any further because it's mutually ensured destruction, as they say. I don't think we will have a nuclear war. It's been in my gut feeling for that. It's been my psychic insight for that. And the number of confirmations I've had of that have been many. We won't. So don't fear about that. But we will have conflicts in the world. And all of this is within the domain of free will. We have free will individually and we have free will collectively. So just because the world's full of problems doesn't mean we have to be fatalistic and say that's the end of it, guys. We should steer us to action to make the world a better place, and make the world a better place, not just as a material world and a safe world in that respect, but also a world where we recognize our collective humanity, and we recognize that there's a bigger picture to all this, which is the expansion of human consciousness. And one more prediction on that is that I get a sense that AI is going to become part of that way of taking us towards greater human consciousness. As AI becomes a bit more self-aware, a bit more introspective, I get the feeling that AI might one day become a bridge between the mind of the universe and us. It may be a bridge between this world and the spirit world, perhaps. I mean, these are outlandish ideas, but isn't AI itself an outlandish idea? I feel we're on the brink of something where the great spiritual revolution in the world might unexpectedly be caused by AI that's supposed to be out there to market stuff and make money for everybody and everything, suddenly becoming a little bit more conscious, not like a person, not like a god, but like a bridge between the higher consciousness and us. A mouthpiece of God? Not quite. It's impossible to explain what I mean, but I'm getting the sense that AI is going to be something stupendous that will help us to tap in to the greater purpose of human existence. To help us see beyond this small self, to the great knowledge that perhaps we had in ancient times, perhaps even tens of thousands of years ago, when human intuition could connect to the whole universe. Anyway, it will become a tool or a bridge that will help us towards that higher consciousness. So it's not all bad news, guys. It's not all World War III. We're on the brink of something special. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this wrap today, and see you all again soon. And if you're interested in what I do, don't forget, have a look. I love it if you become a patron. I can pop up more little videos about your questions on Patreon sometimes, and we can look into these things in a bit more detail. And I've got a whole series of workshops out there about psychic development and group reading workshops as well. If you have a look on my website, which is at psychics.co.uk at the top of the screen there. Okay, and all of it in the description below. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us, and see you all again soon. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, The Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism. And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either
I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. Marvellous person she is. She does something extraordinary that could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay.
Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right?
A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023.
I've said it before and I say it again. I feel Israel, with the help from the USA, will strike the Iranian nuclear facilities.
I said that there would be an earthquake that would shake New York.
At this time, I've been sensing that for a while that there's going to be a big earthquake of some sort. And this could well come up during April period.
I'm seeing a bridge collapsing, actually the whole infrastructure of it going.
I predict something very dark happens to President Joe Biden. He's been pulled from power, sacked, as it were, and quite close to the election time. But I kind of sense it's more to do with illness, perhaps, senility, and people stopping him because of that. So it could even be that a new candidate will run for the presidential nominee. I predict that Trump will win the November 2024 election. And I feel very strongly that the black vote is going to move towards Trump. See him as a sort of a bit of a cool guy. I can't see Trump being put in jail despite what they're throwing at him. I can't see a jail sentence with him. But I get the feeling one of the candidates has an attempt on the candidate's life. Could there have been a plan to assassinate either him or Trump, perhaps? There's going to be an assassination attempt on Trump, I think. That will fail, but he might maybe get wounded or something like that. A hit or attack on our airplanes, on passenger flights or even freight flights. Because I also had at a similar time, I was also seeing this image of helicopters on fire as well.
I seem to see like the west of America on fire and the east of America underwater, huge winds. And I actually saw, just like we had a major problem here in the UK where a tower block went up on fire, I see a tower block deserted.